What does Elon Musk and NASA have in common? They both want to put humans on Mars. Musk wants to do this much faster than NASA, but the billionaire inventor has to stop. That's because NASA makes a massive discovery on planet Mars that will affect its colonization plans for Mars. What did NASA discover on Mars? Will a NASA discovery affect Musk's plans? Join us as we explore how NASA just made a massive discovery on Mars that will change everything on Musk's plans. They say that great minds think the same way. And that's why NASA's brightest minds and SpaceX's minds are pursuing the same goal of landing humans on planet Mars. However, the scale and the schedule with which the two entities are working are different. NASA wants to send a couple of astronauts to Mars in the 1930s, while Musk would prefer to send many more people to the Red Planet, if possible, tomorrow. However, Musk should be paying attention to the recent discoveries made by NASA on Mars, because they directly affect their plans. Mars is an interesting planet, and NASA has made huge efforts to study it over the years. The space agency sent one of its 5 rovers to Mars, including the Sojourners, the Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity, and Perseverance. This has expanded our knowledge of the planet, but the more sophisticated NASA's rovers become, the clearer it becomes that there is much more to learn about the planet. Of the 5 rovers, only 2 NASA rovers remained active, Curiosity and Perseverance. China has a rover, also called Zhurong. NASA still does not have the ability to send a human to Mars, because it does not have all the answers to the problems that astronauts will face on the planet, including high levels of radiation, gravity problems, the long journey there, etc. And it still doesn't even have the technology to bring them home. However, the rovers allow NASA to explore Mars at a relatively lower cost and without risk to humans. Curiosity arrived at Mars in 2012 as part of NASA's Mars Science Laboratory mission, MSL. The rover still holds the record of the largest rover ever built in terms of size. While the images may seem small, Curiosity is 10 feet or 3 meters long, 7 feet or 2.2 meters high, and 2.7 meters or 9 feet wide. It is similarly proportional to a sports utility. Curiosity has crossed the terrain of Mars since then. It has already traveled more than 16.8 miles or 27.4 kilometers at a speed of up to 100 feet per hour. But of course, it is not always moving. Unlike its predecessors, which were equipped with solar panels, Curiosity is equipped with a radioisotope energy system that produces electricity from the heat of the radioactivity of the plutonium. The rover can take fabulous selfies. The main aspect of Curiosity's mission on Mars is to help determine if the planet has ever supported life in the form of microbial life. With this respect, Curiosity has been successful, with many discoveries that are shaping how scientists see the Red Planet. The surface of Mars can be very hard for life now, but scientists suspect that billions of years ago the planet had a climate similar to Earth's. There was a denser atmosphere and an abundance of liquid water flowing in rivers and seas. Liquid water is crucial for life as we understand it. Therefore, scientists think that Martian life could have been sustained by substances such as organic carbon. So how has Curiosity helped us in the search for evidence of life on Mars? Well, carbon is critical to life, as much as we know. So anytime we detect a strong carbon signature somewhere like Mars, it can point to biological activity. Carbon is everywhere you can find life. However, there are different types of carbon. Carbon atoms have 6 protons, but the number of neutrons can vary. We refer to carbon atoms with different numbers of neutrons as isotopes. Of all the isotopes and types of carbon, 3 isotopes occur naturally: C12, C13, and C14. The first 2 are stable, but C14 is a radionuclide. C12 has 6 neutrons, C13 has 7 neutrons, and C14 has 8 neutrons. C12 is the most common carbon isotope. It is in photosynthesis or in food metabolism. The reason is that C12 has fewer neutrons than C13, which means that when it connects with other atoms and molecules, it makes fewer connections than C13 in the same situation. But why are we talking about carbon isotopes? This is because of the discovery made at Gale Crater. Gale Crater is located on Mars, and this is a place where Curiosity has been active since 2012. Scientists say that the sediment was formed through the physical and chemical mineralization of the volcanic rocks before settling at the bottom of the lake. There are other reasons for scientists to look at Gale Crater in search of signs of life. For example, the site contains chemical energy sources, low acidity, and other elements in addition to carbon, including oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur. The rover perforated the rocks of the crater to extract a pulverized sample, which it deposits in its chemistry laboratory on board. The laboratory is known as SAM, or Sample Analysis on Mars. What happens inside SAM? This is where Curiosity uses pyrolysis to roast the sample and convert it into methane. Pyrolysis is made in an inert helium flow to avoid any contamination in the process. Then it studies the gas with a tunable laser spectrometer to find out which carbon isotopes are present in the methane. The team behind Curiosity studied 24 rock samples and discovered something huge. 6 of the samples had increased proportions from C12 to C13. They used the proportions of C12 and C13 found on Earth as a basis for comparison, and they realized that the Gale crater samples had more than 70 parts per thousand C12 more. On Earth, 98.93% of the carbon is C12 on Earth, and C13 forms the remaining 1.07%. And what does this mean? Simply, if these results were obtained on Earth, they would indicate that a biological process produced the abundance of C12. This is the reason why the discovery was exciting. This is how it works on Earth. In the distant past, the bacteria on the surface produced methane as a byproduct. These are known as methanogens. They are prokaryotes of the archaea domain. You can still find methanogens on Earth in wet, anoxic areas, and the digestive pathways of ruminants, and in extreme environments such as thermal sources. These bacteria produce methane that eventually ends up in the atmosphere, where it reacts and interacts with ultraviolet light. But the product of these interactions are more complex molecules that would rain on the surface of the Earth. Once on the surface of the Earth, they are preserved in rocks along with their carbon signatures. It is tempting to assume that the same process occurred on Mars, which would explain very well the discovery of Curiosity in the Gale crater. However, some scientists have other explanations for the discovery of the Curiosity rover in the Gale crater. One of them is the hypothesis of the molecular cloud. The idea is that the solar system passed through a molecular cloud hundreds of millions of years ago. The event is very rare, but there is evidence that it happens about once in 100 million years. Most molecular clouds are composed of molecular hydrogen, but what we are talking about may have had a greater concentration of the type of carbon discovered by Curiosity in the Gale crater. Mars would have cooled significantly as a result of this cloud, and along with the glaciation, it would not have allowed the molecular cloud to mix with the rest of the carbon on Mars. This would only result in an increase in the level of C12. However, the hypothesis of the molecular cloud remains highly unlikely, even though it is worth investigating. The second explanation involves ultraviolet light. The atmosphere of Mars contains more than 95% carbon dioxide. And this theory says that carbon dioxide interacted with UV light to produce new molecules containing carbon, which would have ended on the surface of Mars through the rain and would be infested in the rocks. You will probably notice the similarity between this process and the methanogenic one. The difference is that one is completely abiotic. One way for scientists to try to establish which of the three theories is correct is by studying the carbon cycle of the red planet. But Curiosity will continue to study rock samples and measure carbon isotopes. Scientists will one day have a better chance of analyzing Mars rocks when the samples collected by NASA's other rover, Perseverance, reach Earth. Whatever the source of carbon isotopes found by Curiosity, Musk would have personally invested in the result. Of course, Musk likes science, but he is interested in other reasons, his plans to colonize Mars. Musk's ambition is to see humans permanently living on Mars. He is preparing to send up to 1 million people to Mars, where they will start a new life. The colonization of Mars is the main reason for the new Starship rocket that Musk is leading the development. The two-stage rocket has many features that will help Musk achieve his ambition. It is completely reusable, which will greatly reduce the cost of launching humans and cargo into space. The cost is crucial here because many tons of supplies have to be transported from Earth to Mars. Starship also uses fuel that is theoretically possible to produce on Mars, which will ensure that there is enough fuel to send the Starship back to Earth. Musk is pushing the SpaceX crew to work 24 hours to complete the ship, which is necessary if he is to reach his goal of sending the first set of humans to Mars by mid-decade. He plans to raise funds for the Starlink business, the internet, and the SpaceX satellite. However, Mars is tough, and for the colonizers to survive on the planet, Musk has to do something. Earth to form the planet. The idea is to make Mars as habitable as Earth, or almost. One of the main things missing on Mars is that a problem for humans is a protective atmosphere, but Musk had an idea that we admit to be crazy: destroy the poles. Musk theorizes that the explosion of the 2 poles of Mars with nuclear missiles will create artificial suns that will heat the planet, producing an atmosphere similar to Earth. The image of Mars after the formation of Earth was placed in the SpaceX facility's lobby in Texas. When this happens, breathing machines will be the only devices humans will need to survive on Mars. Let's hear what you think about this from humans on Mars in the comments section.